connecting our lives to help us survive. So we live our time to the fullest we can.
Hi, and welcome to Professional Insights, created by Dementia Action Alliance. I'm proud to be your host, Laurie Scher. During our Professional Insights podcast, we have educational conversations with professionals in the dementia community to provide answers and support to people living with dementia and their care partners. My guest today is Tish Hevel. Tish is the founder and CEO of the Brain Donor Project, a unique nonprofit that exclusively supports the brain banks of the National Institutes of Health, which is NIH. It's the NeuroBioBank. In this podcast, Tish shares how and why brain donation is important. Tish, welcome and thank you for being here.
Laurie, thank you so much for having me. I love to share this information as a resource to your community. If you don't mind, I'll just go ahead and launch into a presentation here.
Absolutely. I know you have a beautiful presentation prepared so go for it.
Thank you. You're sweet. Okay, so first of all, I need to thank everybody for their time and attention learning about brain donation. It's an urgent situation for us to talk about, and it's urgent in medical research for two reasons. First of all, 1 in 5 of us now already has a neurologic disease or disorder. And if you think about it, that's more than one person in your circle already. And it's going to get worse. Our chances of being diagnosed with a neurologic disease or disorder increase as we age. And we're all living longer than ever. So it's easy to see where all this is heading. The burden is going to be tremendous. And so it's for that reason that many scientific investigators say that donated brain tissue is quite simply the most precious resource known to man, whether or not you have a disorder. You heard that right. The problem is that not enough people know about brain donation and the critical need for it, or they have misperceptions about it. The biggest one of all, because we hear it all the time, is that if you've checked the box to become an organ donor, it includes brain donation. That is incorrect. It does not. Separate arrangements need to be made. Another one is that if you've signed up to be a body donor, that's the same thing. Again, it is not. Body donation programs are for anatomical study, and the brain is much more valuable for neurologic research. Also, people may have the misconception that only diseased brains are needed. Again, not so. So-called unaffected controls or healthy brains are needed in every single study. So there's obviously, and they're critical to comparative science. So that's an incorrect. Also, it is not disfiguring. And when donating to one of the brain banks of the NIH, the NeuroBioBank, there is no additional cost to the family. That is not the case everywhere, but it is when working through the Brain Donor Project. So how did we learn all this? Let's just say we kind of learned it the hard way. This is my dad, Gene Armentrout. He was diagnosed with Lewy bodies dementia back in 2014. And when we were trying to learn about Lewy body dementia, we kept coming across brain donation. And so we figured out how to do that. We made arrangements to donate my dad's brain. He was already going to be an anatomical donor, so we knew it would be his wishes. And it was kind of complicated at the time. So we talked to a lot of people about it, and they were all asking me and my family, we didn't know that was a thing. How can we do it? And I sort of said, let me see if I can help make it simpler, and I'll get back to you on that. So, long story short, we got involved with the NIH and we started the Brain Donor Project in 2016. Secondly, wait a second. First, I need to tell you that there's 2 big benefits that we learned about this. And families find this very valuable. I hear from a lot of them. The first one is that there is a significant sense of comfort or solace in donating a loved one's brain to neuroscience research. It's, you do have the recognition that something positive could come out of this terrible loss. And that's helpful. The second benefit, and this slide illustrates it, is that The family, if they request it of the brain bank, can get a copy of what's known as the Summary of Neuropathological Findings. This particular slide isn't necessarily a part of it, but I wanted you to know that the dark purple, this is my dad's histology images enhanced so that you can see that I'm told the dark purple spots on here are a particular protein that's a hallmark of Lewy body's dementia. So that's the only real definitive diagnosis that you get with most dementias. So one day when we know more about the neurologic underpinnings of these diseases, this will be important information for the family to have. So we wanted to have that as well. And then after all that happened, we decided to get into the science of supporting science, which is how we call our support. So let me tell you a little bit about what the role of the Brain Donor Project is in this whole thing. We support only the NeuroBioBank of the National Institutes of Health in their efforts to make high quality, well-characterized human brain tissue available to investigators. They need it for their studies. Our focus is on simplifying the process to become a brain donor and also on raising awareness of the critical need for it. We sort of function as a middleman to the brain banks. So we ask people to come to us and our website, and then we help determine which brain bank makes the most sense for them. This illustrates it. Brain Donor Project refers to the NeuroBioBank participants. And these are the ones that are serving the public across the country these days. So there's at UCLA, at the University of Miami in Florida, the University of Maryland at Baltimore, Mount Sinai in the Bronx, and at Harvard. There is a sixth one in Pittsburgh, but it works exclusively with the medical examiner's office. So those are the brain banks we refer to. I know it looks like there's a big empty spot in the middle, but believe me, these brain banks can service the entire country and Alaska and Hawaii because they've recovered from all those places with the aid of a network of pathologists across the country and expedited medical shipping processes. So the other things that you should know about the NeuroBioBank, if you're considering where to donate your brain, it is the nation's only federated network of brain banks. So many locations, but the information on all the brains is housed at one site for scientists to access. So it gives a lot of power behind the supplies. It's a good supply. The NeuroBioBank also distributes tissue on the merits of the study period. Little background here. The scientists all came to the NIH about 10 years ago and said, we're having a problem. We can't get our hands on this tissue and we need it for our studies. At that point, you had to have an affiliation with a certain teaching hospital, or there were other barriers. And the NIH said, okay, let's see what we can do about this. And that's when the NIH decided to get into the brain banking business. So there are others, but there are other brain banks, but there are some barriers to access to the tissue. And you want it to be accessible to as many neuroscientists as possible, because you don't know where the next set of brilliance is going to come from. It also accepts and encourages the donation of control brains. As I mentioned, many brain banks do not. It has stringent transparency requirements, meaning any scientist who uses donated brain tissue from the NeuroBioBank in a study that gets published, they're required to publish it to their site, to the NeuroBioBank site, so that other scientists can build upon that. And it supports.
Let me interrupt 1 second. Would you just go over again? What is a control bank?
A control brain?
A control brain.
Yeah. That's an unaffected, somebody who has a healthy brain, no disease. So thanks for asking. I want to make sure that's real clear. That's an important thing, especially for family and caregivers of those with dementia. That's a way they can support research by donating their own, presumably unaffected brain. Glad you asked.
Thank you.
Sure. And then the final thing is that not only does it support scientists and academia, but also industry and international science, because about 30% of what the NeuroBioBank ships every year is shipped internationally. So it's a great resource to our planet in terms of brain research. So here's how the science of supporting science works. If it's something that you want to take a look at, and I hope you do, you go to our website, which is braindonorproject.org. And you can learn all about brain donation on there. We have a very robust FAQ section, and it walks you through the process. When you're ready, you can take the first steps to become a brain donor by filling out an online form that's accessible at the brain pre-registration button. It's on the top right corner of the homepage and the other pages as well. This is a real simple form. First question it asks is, are you doing this for yourself or somebody else? Second question is something to the effect of, are we in a hurry? The rest of it is just contact information for the donor and whoever may be pre-registering for them. And then there's room for a diagnosis at the end. Based on that, we determine which brain bank makes the most sense, and then we connect the brain bank to the individual. A couple different ways, depending on how much of a hurry we're in. So that's the first step. So we do that. We get people connected to the brain bank, and we send the forms or give a phone number, depending. Then the brain bank takes over that relationship with the individual and or his or her family. So we sort of hand off that thing. The brain bank then provides a lot of information for the donor to share with the family about what to do at time of death. And the family's role in that is critical. So here's how it works. The brain bank asks to be notified super quickly upon death. They would like to hear from the family within the hour. Then the brain bank arranges for the body to be transported to some place local. Typically these days, the recovery procedure is happening at the family's funeral home. But if for whatever reason that's not doable, then they try to identify another mortuary or medical facility. The brain bank sends their pathologist there to remove the brain, again through the back of the head, and then they ship it to the brain bank. At that point, the body is released to the family for funeral or cremation. Two important things to remember there. One, no cost to the family for any of that when working with the NIH. And two, if the family requests it of the brain bank will supply that summary of neuropathological findings to the family. Again, that's also at no cost. It can take a while to get it when they finish with all their assessments, but good information to have. So just to give you an idea of who's signing up, we now have more than 17,000 people that have at least taken the first steps to become brain donors. About 40% of them are the controls we talked about, Lori. Those are people who don't have a neurologic diagnosis. They range all kinds of ages. They cover all 50 states, and they represent 160 categories of neurologic disorders. So we have quite the variety of diagnoses.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, thanks. We also work really closely with a lot of patient advocacy groups to get the word out. We have partnerships with the Parkinson's Foundation and the Alzheimer's Association and many, many, many others. So, and then when we're lucky, like we were back in 2018, we were featured in a National Geographic article about brain donation, and that led to an enormous amount of pre-registrations, which was great. Then last year, we were also, we guested on NPR's Science Friday, which aired across 400 radio stations across the country back in February. And that led to another huge surge in pre-registration. So it made last year our largest pre-registration year ever. And then shortly after that, we co-hosted a briefing of the Congressional Neuroscience Caucus, and the co-chair introduced House Resolution number 1069 to name May 7th, which is my dad's birthday, National Brain Donation Awareness Day. So it's the first time we've gotten that. We're going to be celebrating and marking it in a big way every year. So just so you know, that's what we're about. So in closing, what I like to ask people is this. Please think about your legacy. It seems like we spend a lot of time figuring out who's going to get our stuff and what we're going to do with our money, if we have any left, and, the sorts of things that we want to put into the world when our time is up. And so our suggestion is, please consider brain donation. It is an irreplaceable gift. Register in advance. Tell your family what you're doing. They are absolutely critical to the process of seeing through your wishes. And go to braindonorproject.org for more information. And that's it, Laurie. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great to share this with you and your communities.
Oh, Tish, thank you so much for being here. And I did go on and register already, just so you're aware.
Wonderful.
I did step 1 there.
Good.
I appreciate this. We have groups of people living with dementia, and many of us have dementia that's a familia. We know that the odds are very high that children, grandchildren, whatever, may have whatever form of dementia we have. So for many of us, this is an important issue, and I appreciate you coming on and telling us about it. So
my pleasure. My pleasure. Wonderful meeting you.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank all of you, our viewers, for viewing our podcast and being a part of this. This is our Professional Insights podcast. Please visit our website, daanow.org, to view other podcasts, find valuable resources, and find ways to connect with other people living with dementia through our virtual discussions and engagement programs. Dementia Action Alliance is committed to enhancing the lives, connecting people, and increasing understanding. Have a great day.
Live our lives to the fullest we can, so we